Uh, Basically, I will be rediscussing all those topics which we discussed and the background of classes which was held from November 2nd to November 7th at Namma IAS. Basically, this whole class is for allowing you to understand how to read newspapers. First of all, the major problem of any IAS aspirant is that he has not been reading newspapers for X years, or he has been reading newspapers but not as the aspirant has to read the newspaper. So generally he misses upon certain topics, and newspapers always speak about the current events. They doesn't give the solid background of the whole event, but they generally speak about the X+1, because they cannot keep on speaking about the entire history, and it generally depends. It becomes difficult for people to track the events. They don't know what to read, they don't know what not to read, and more importantly, they cannot grasp the whole essence of newspapers. So you go to the nammaIAS.blogspot.com, there go to the backgrounders. You will have a list, something called as a backgrounders list. Basically, this backgrounders list identifies the significant topics, the significant topics which we are expecting some developments to happen, like climate change, nuclear deal, the India-US relationships, US-Russia relationships, India's nuclear policy, the Indo-China. Recently there has been a lot of talks on Indo-China. Dalai Lama went to Arunachal Pradesh, India, Sri Lanka, North Korea and West Asia, Iran nuclear program. Kindly check this PDF out. It will be on the nammaias.blogspot.com. Okay, so we'll speak with climate change. What do you mean by climate change? What do you think climate change is? The generic answer would be that climate change is all about the hole in the ozone, or about the melting ices in Arctic and Antarctic. Right? This is what you think. But no longer, if you have been tracking the newspapers, no longer the climate change is just about these things. The climate change today has become more of a political question and an economical question rather than an environmental question. Today, if you read the newspapers, you will be seeing talks on climate adaptation funds. You will be seeing talks on peaking agreements. You will be seeing talks on 2 degrees centigrades. So what all this climate change is all about? You need to know the basics which I am going to speak, so that you can get the grasp of all other articles which you will be seeing in your newspapers. Now, first of all, the whole world gets divided into 3 groups. 1 is called as the AOSIS, 2 is the OECD, and 3 is the developing nations, that is our India, Brazil, South Africa, etc. These AOSIS, or who are these AOSIS? They are the Association of Small Island States, like Maldives. Recently our nation went deep into the water. They had a cabinet meeting inside water. Why? Because the effect of this whole climate change, or what this temperature rise etc. has been, is that the first who is going to sink are these island states. Though they have not contributed much. When you see the economy of these island states are generally tourist oriented spaces. Their whole economy is run on tourists, not on some industries which actually emit carbon dioxide. So they are not the culprits. They have not emitted the carbon dioxide. Understand this. They have not emitted the carbon dioxide. But the developed nations like US, UK, Russia, they are emitting carbon dioxide. And because of these carbon dioxide, whichever these developed countries have emitted, the first to sink are AOSIS, that is Association of Small Island States like Maldives. So they want the whole world crying help, help, help. They are crying for help. Now the second group, that's the OECD. OECD means developed countries. These are the major culprits of the whole climate change. They have imposed carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. Almost 90% of whatever is the contribution today of the carbon dioxide profile is by these developed countries. They have emitted so much of carbon dioxide. Now, But these developed countries don't want a proper solution to this climate change. They say that I have many other businesses, like they are much worried about the Iran crisis, they are much worried about the nuclear bombs, rather than climate change. They are into the climate change talks only for the economical reasons. As long as it gives some economical advantage to these countries, that is the US, the UK, the Russia, they are okay with the climate change. Otherwise, they are not ready for the climate change. I mean, any talks on the climate change. Then there is a third type, that's your India. Now, this India, China, basically India and China. Now, India and China, these are the developing countries. India, China, Brazil, BRIC nations, not really Russia. The India, China, South Africa, Mexico, Russia, Mexico, Brazil. Now, for them, climate change, they are growing economies. They are growing economies. Their economy is now growing. They have the capability. They have the resilient energy, or they have the ability to overcome this whole climate change. So they are trying to strike some deal with them. For these countries, the major issue is poverty. More than half of our nation today sleeps under the sky, eats half-baked food or half stomach. They sleep half stomach. They are hungry. Now, for these countries like India, for countries like China, for countries like Brazil, the foremost important thing is elimination of poverty. That's how bring about the human development, rather than concentrating on cutting emissions. For them, how do you bring about this human development? How do you eliminate poverty? You eliminate poverty by bringing in industries, and obviously that will cause more and more pollution. For India, the major concern is poverty and to give work to those people, rather than concentrating on some stupid targets, or rather than concentrating on some stupid emission targets. India says it's not about, understand this very well, write this down. For India, they say emission should not become an end. Emission is a means. What is it a means to? Towards an end of human development. What is the major goal of a nation? Our major goal of a nation is to bring about development, is to reduce poverty. And if at all emission change can help in reducing poverty, if at all the emission change can bring about some development in human beings of the country, then I am with the climate change. Otherwise, I am not with the climate change. So this is what is the stand of India. Now, whenever you study this climate change, we come up with two important commissions or committees. One is called as IPCC, that is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and another is called as the UNFCCC. Please write this down. One is called as the IPCC, another one is called as the UNFCCC. Now, IPCC says that the present day global average temperature is about 0.6 to 0.8 degrees centigrade warmer than the pre-industrial temperature. Now, another important thing you need to understand when we speak about this whole climate change, whenever I say pre-industry, means it's called as the 1990 levels. See, this climate change is more about statistics, It's all about argument about how much increase in temperature. 2 degrees centigrade, 1 degree centigrade, 0.4 degrees centigrade, 0.6 degrees centigrade. Or how much percentage cut? 55 percentage cut, 55 percentage cut, or 60 percentage cut, 80 percentage cut. Climate change is all about these things. Now, whenever I say degree centigrade, it means 2 degrees centigrade above something, right? 2 degrees centigrade above what? Above 1990 levels. That is called as the pre-industrial level. What is it called as the pre-industrial level? The 1990 levels. Now, IPCC says that if the temperature is 2 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial level, then the world will sink. So, all the time we have to make sure that our temperature is within the framework of 2 degrees centigrade. Now please note this 2 degrees centigrade important because we will speak